What's up, good people? Good late afternoon slash early evening for y'all. Hope you guys are having a good Tuesday so far. And we've got some pretty big news within the division. I usually don't make videos about non-Seahawks news, but this is pretty massive. So I figure we gotta talk about it for at least one video. But real quick, before we talk about the news that broke this morning, I should be jumping on Twitch in the next hour or so to do some Ragnarok. So if that interests you, head on over there. Get ready. We're going to do a couple hours of Ragnarok tonight. Should be a lot of fun. And there will be a stream on the Hawks Nest channel where we talk about this recent Buccaneers loss and figure out what we can do better going forward. So if you want to see me and Brandon talk about the Seahawks for a couple hours, head on over there, subscribe, tune in. You guys know what to do. You guys know how it works. Hope to see you guys there. Okay, so we kind of knew this was going to go this way. I think we all had an idea that the injury that Cooper Kupp suffered against the Cardinals on Sunday was big. But we now have official word. Cooper Kupp is scheduled to undergo ankle surgery Wednesday, and the team is placing him on injured reserve. So he is going to miss at least 4 weeks. And with the way the Rams season is going, could be longer. Now, I will say, if there's any possibility of Kupp coming back this year, I believe that he will. That Rams team is not a team that's going to just lay down. Like, maybe if they lose their next 4 games in a row and they're on some, what would it be at that point, 8-game losing streak, and the playoffs they're eliminated from the playoffs literally, maybe then. But, yeah, I don't think that Rams team is just going to lay down. They don't have any incentive to do that. If you're being straight honest, it would probably be, under normal circumstances, a good idea to just sit Stafford for the rest of the year and sit Cooper Kupp for the rest of the year. These Rams, they got to keep the pedal to the metal because they're trying to win over the LA crowd. They're trying to win over that city, and they don't have a first round pick next year. And basically, they just don't know how to hit the brakes. That's why you saw them try to trade for Brian Burns. That's why you saw them completely willing to destroy their draft for the next several years to get him, because they're kind of in a situation where there's no slowing down. So I do expect Kupp to come back later this year if it's at all possible. Same with Stafford. However, as you can see, we play the Rams in a few weeks here. We have a bye week, Vegas, and then the Rams. So guaranteed no Cooper Kupp for that one game against LA. Now, the next game we play the Rams, last game of the year. If Kupp has any opportunity to come back this year, then he'll, of course, be back by the last game of the year. So there you go. So, hey, it definitely affects the Seahawks, right? Because Cooper Kupp was pretty much all that the Rams had at this point, right? Like, I don't need to tell you guys how good Cooper Kupp is. Last year, one of the greatest seasons any receiver's ever had. He set the yards from scrimmage record. He won the Triple Crown, Offensive Player of the Year, got MVP votes, I believe. Set a record for most catches in one playoff run with, I believe, 33. Super Bowl MVP. It was, in terms of raw performance, probably the greatest season any wide receiver has ever had. In fact, I don't know how it isn't. If you combine regular season with playoffs, you're talking about what? Close to over 2,500 yards. And Super Bowl MVP, and it's an insane season. And what's happened in 2022 is that the Rams have gone from an all-around solid team to a team that is Cooper Kupp and nothing else. What they've done this year in terms of their offense is kind of staggering. Even though Cooper Kupp did nothing in this most recent game against the Cardinals because he got hurt before he could do anything, he was still near the league lead in receiving yards. He's obviously behind guys like Justin Jefferson and Tyreek Hill. Those guys are kind of running away with things this year. But other than those guys, he was right at the top. He's got double the receiving yards of anybody else on the Rams. And you take a look, without Cooper Kupp, who are they going to be leaning on in the passing game? Who are they going to be looking to fill that void on an offense that was, by the way, already not playing that well because Cooper Kupp was everything they had? Like, they couldn't run the ball. They actually, if you look at it statistically, they have the worst running game in the NFL. 32nd in attempts, 32nd in yards, 31st in yards per attempt. You look at the guys they actually have running the ball for them. It's Darrell Henderson, who's on pace to have like 500 rushing yards this year, and Cam Akers, who they can't wait to get out of there ASAP. They basically tried to give him away and couldn't. And look at the receivers that they're going to be stuck with now without Cooper Kupp. You've got Allen Robinson, who is completely not caught on. I mean, I don't doubt that Allen Robinson's a good player, but after really not playing well last year for the Bears in an acceptable circumstance, he's on pace for about 550 yards and 55 catches this year for the Rams. Obviously, a number like that's going to go up a little bit now that he's going to be the featured receiver. He's going to have to catch a little bit more, but it definitely speaks to the fact that him and Stafford have not been able to get on the same page at all. So you're definitely not going to replace Kupp effectively with a guy like Allen Robinson this year. You've got Ben Skronik, who has been playing fullback more than anything this year. He becomes now a guy they need to lean on as a pass catcher. He's on pace for what? 500 yards, 50 catches or so this year, looks like. Something around there. You've got Van Jefferson, who I kind of like. He had a pretty good year last year, 800 yards, but he just made his way back from a pretty significant injury. He's got 3 catches so far in 3 games. And can he take on a full role in an offense? Not clear. I mean, last year he did have a decent year, 800 receiving yards, 6 touchdowns, but that was a 17-game season he played. He started every game, and he still wasn't anything over the top. And Tutu Atwell, who is making Dwayne Eskridge look good. No joke here. This dude is actually making Dwayne Eskridge look competent. He's been in the league 2 years now. He has 1 career catch. 1 career catch back in... What was it? What week was it? Back in week 6. Week 5. And other than that, like he is a poor man's Dwayne Eskridge. So at least we took Dwayne Eskridge away from the Rams, I guess, and made them take Atwell instead. Okay, I'm gonna stop talking about this, but I think you guys get what I'm saying here. So they're losing the best receiver, most productive receiver in football, and they're replacing him with guys who just aren't performing, guys who just aren't producing at a high level. Probably their best bet is Van Jefferson becoming a credible number 1 receiver, and like I said, his career highs are 50 catches and 800 yards. And you look at this team as a whole. Stafford, after playing really well last year, is having a big time down year. Obviously, his arm isn't right. He missed the last game. He's injured right now, too. I believe he'll be back fairly soon, but talking about a guy who's started 8 games this year, has less than 2,000 yards, 8 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, just playing very, very lackluster football. His numbers are approximately in line with what you're seeing from Russell Wilson in terms of overall quality. The Rams can't run the ball at all. Again, they have the worst running game in the league. And their defense, which was the seat of their power in many ways last year, is below league average. And I think the thing that stands out the most about this defense is their absolute lack of pass rush compared to recent years. Aaron Donald is still having a pretty good year, but he's on pace to have single-digit sacks for the first time since Jeff Fisher was his coach. He had 8 sacks in 2016. Since then, he's had at least 11 every year. This year, he's on pace for about 9. And more damning than that, he's on pace for about 20 to 21 pressures. This is a guy who had 70 in 2018 and anywhere from 40 to 55 over the last 3 years. So he has gone from best defensive player in the league to slightly better than Quentin Jefferson in terms of getting to the quarterback. Literally, Quentin Jefferson is not that far off from these numbers this year in terms of getting after the quarterback. So he's good, of course. He's still a good player, but he's not the force that he used to be at all. Again, I want to reiterate this. He's on pace for about 20 pressures this year. I think if you gave Bruce Irvin Aaron Donald's number of snaps, he would probably get to about that point. Quentin Jefferson's going to get pretty close to about 20 QB pressures this year probably. And he's Quentin Jefferson. And he's not getting any support either. Leonard Floyd, who I thought was a really nice, underrated part of that defense in previous years, he had 37 pressures last year, 30 the year before. He's on pace for about 16 to 18, and 5 sacks, which is literally Quentin Jefferson tier. Like, literally, he's gotten about as much QB pressure this year as Quentin Jefferson, according to PFR. And there's nobody else who's really picking up the slack. Their third best pass rusher this year has probably been, I don't know, Bobby Wagner, Jalen Ramsey. So this team really just doesn't have anything going for it anymore. They had one really nice piece, one high quality piece, and it's gone now. And what I'm trying to get to, the point I'm trying to make here is that with Cooper Kupp now being out for at least this next Seahawks game and possibly more, the time for this era of the Rams holding over the Seahawks, there's no excuse for it to not end. Everything that let the Rams rule over the Seahawks in recent years has been wiped away. All right? You look at the recent rivalry ever since Sean McVay got there in 2017. Seahawks have won 3 games against the Rams. 3 games against the Rams. One of the games was because Cooper Kupp dropped the game-winning touchdown with about 20 seconds left. I remember that very well. One, because I believe at the time it was Legatron missed a very makeable field goal, the Paul Allen game. And then you had the one game in 2020 where they handled their business 120-9 to clinch the division, only to have the Rams go into Lumen Field and beat them in the playoffs a few weeks later to make it feel like it just didn't matter. So, other than that, you look at some of these games, the Rams are blowing out the Seahawks quite often. The 42-7 game that I think got Tom Cable and Chris Richard and Darrell Bevel fired. 28-12, that was the LA game when we were trying to seize control of our playoff destinies. You had the playoff game. You had the 2 games last year. It's never easy. When you do win, mostly you barely skate by. Now, we've obviously lost some close games to the Rams. I don't want to miss that point here. But the reasons why this has happened are pretty clear. One, Wilson was always bad against the Rams, especially in the McVay era. He's really struggled to have... He's had a couple of pretty decent games, right? Like 2018, that first game in 2019, those games are pretty good. But since then, it's just been really tough sledding for Wilson against these Rams. Wilson's not here anymore. Our offensive line could not handle their pass rush in most of these games. Aaron Donald, Leonard Floyd, last year a little bit of Von Miller. Whoever it was, our offensive lines just got eaten up. It's a new offensive line now. You've got 2 blue chip or relatively blue chip tackles, and they're playing very well. You've got some new pieces on the interior of the offensive line that are actually coming together quite well. Damian Lewis is actually starting to put together some really good reps at left guard. Phil Haynes is probably giving us our best reps at right guard since, I don't even know, maybe since before the Pete Carroll era. I'm not even sure. So you have all these things that made the Rams dominant against you. And by the way, I just want to point this out real quick. You look at the last 5 times the Seahawks have played the Rams. This defense was starting to figure out the Rams offense anyway. Like, you look at these games, 23 points allowed, 9 points allowed. 2020, the defense actually played pretty well against the Rams. The reason why you lost the first game was mostly on the offense not producing. That was kind of the game where Wilson's elite level play faded and didn't come back for a while. Or actually, it still hasn't come back. The playoff game, 30 points, but 14 of those points were not on the defense. We had a pick 6, and we had a fumble on a punt return that set up the Rams for an easy score. Last year, you had 26-17, 26 points, but the defense had the Rams down at 3 points until, I think, midway through the third quarter, and our offense gave them no support, and eventually the dam broke. And then the game in LA last year, 20-10, you hold the Rams to 20 points. They're at it was 10-10 for most of that game, and then the defense broke a little bit at the end because, again, the offense doesn't produce. The offense gives the defense no support. So this Seahawks defense, to Pete Carroll's credit, after getting shredded by the McVay offense for the first few years McVay was there, he started to figure some stuff out, and the last 5 times we played the Rams, The defense has played anywhere from decent to excellent and given the team a chance to win in pretty much every game. So there's nothing left here. And obviously, because of the way the Rams have dominated the Seahawks since McVay got there, or relatively dominated, it's uncomfortable. But that should be the final nail in the coffin. They have now lost their arguably only good player so far through 2022, or at least only great player. I don't know if Aaron Donald's been great this year. I don't get the sense that he has. I don't think Jalen Ramsey's been good for about a year now. So what do they have that's great other than, I guess, Sean McVay? And Sean McVay has been completely unable to exercise his greatness this year. Clearly, they have one of the worst offenses in the league. They are only a couple little notches above where Denver is. So when we play the Rams in a couple weeks here, there should be no reason why them holding over you these last few years should play into it at all. The things that allowed them to hold over the Seahawks, not there anymore. There's really nothing going on with this team that's any good, except maybe you could say they've got some nice things in their secondary. I like Taylor Rapp. Taylor Rapp's a nice player. Jalen Ramsey isn't necessarily terrible yet, but I'm not convinced that he's good. And look, it should be pretty much over now, right? Rams don't even have a first-round pick next year. I think the time of the Rams holding over the Seahawks is officially come to an end here. And when we play them in a couple weeks, I don't want to hear anything about that stuff. Because all the things that made it true are not true anymore. Football is not magic. There's nothing magic in that LA Rams logo that makes them play better against the Seahawks. This is now officially a really bad Rams team. The one thing they had going for them that was special is now gone for at least a month. So, yeah, it's big news. Looking at it, even if Stafford comes back, you have to wonder, are the Rams going to be able to win more than 2 games the rest of the year? I don't know. Obviously, we're going to kind of want them to beat Denver in a few weeks when they play them. But ignoring that for a second, it feels good to see this team go away. I'm hoping that it holds going into 2023. Obviously, they have limited flexibility to do anything about this limited team. And I'm hopefully it has ended at the one Super Bowl. One Super Bowl was one Super Bowl too many for these Rams. So just go looking over it, it's kind of stark. It's kind of amazing how this team that didn't change that much from last year has just got nothing to talk about going into the midway point of the 2022 season. See you guys later. Go Hawks.